Thank you for the introduction. So yes, I will say something about the RISE project PapaBuild that we had until about 1 year ago, 2 years ago, sorry. And it's about acoustic comfort. So we had a collaboration between industrial partners and universities to make ways to create better isolation in houses by innovative methods. Okay. The consortium consisted of 4 academic partners, as you can see in the map here. So we had KULeuven, a partner in Austria, in Slovakia, and in Croatia. And there were also 3 SMEs, actually quite small companies in this case, also in Austria, in Croatia, and in Slovakia. And the consortium was actually realized through pairs. So there was already before close collaboration between the 2 Austrian partners, between the 2 Slovak partners, and between the 2 Croatian partners. And there is also a link between KU Leuven and Slovakia and Austria, which already existed because one of the people was, let's say, international and exchanged in one of the other countries. Our, let's say, goal from our perspective was to facilitate the partially already existing interactions between the partners, and also to explore the possibilities of, let's say, having the industrial interest, because I'm from academics, to let's say see to what extent maybe the industrials can bring us with our feet on the ground when we try to develop new things, like because the industrials have a good idea on what the society, let's say, their customers need, while as academics we are more driven by scientific curiosity, which is not always, let's say, ready for applications. It also doesn't have to, I think, but sometimes it's good if you can make a match or if you can explore the matches. As it was already mentioned earlier today, so one of the conditions of these RISE projects is that they should be both international and intersectorial, which for us was a little bit challenging because, let's say, it would also be interesting to, let's say, have, let's say, funded exchange, for example, only intersectorial and or only international. Now, I have seen in the new scheme that there are some possibilities for also, for example, an academic from Belgium going to an academic institution from another country, which, let's say, can help to have more flexibility in the exchanges. And of course, it should be interdisciplinary. In our case, it was, because, for example, some academic partners were more like towards theory, the other ones were more, had more like laboratory equipment. In our case, we also had different aspects of acoustics. We had objective things for acoustics, and we also have subjective, and that requires different expertise. So talking about objective and subjective, so what we wanted to do is to make new innovative structures for buildings to make better acoustic isolation, because if you have a good acoustic isolation, then you will not be disturbed by the environmental noise or by your neighbors, for example. And what was interesting, I think, and also maybe a part of the success of our project, is that we gave a big importance to sustainability. For example, when we developed some improvement, some objective improvement, which you can measure for acoustic isolation, we also did listening tests. We let people listen to the effect and let them judge whether the effect was really audible, because if you develop something and maybe you can measure it, but you cannot hear it, then, okay, there's not much point in doing it. So we had a work package on subjective assessment, objective assessment, and sustainability. We also checked to what extent people care, even if they can maybe hear some noise? Do they really care about it? And we have tried to do this by making inquiries, letting them, let's say, estimate in euros how much would they pay, for example, to have a certain structure, innovative structure in their house, to get, for example, better acoustic conditions. Yeah. I think the, let's say, attractive part, maybe for European Commission or for the funding agency of our project, so was that there's clearly a beneficial impact for society. We also, during the project, we did big efforts to communicate our results and, let's say, the problematics in general, the awareness about this acoustic problem and solution to a wide audience in different ways, by, let's say, radio, TV, Twitter, and so on. I think well, obviously we had a synergy between academia and companies, because there was a continuous exchange. There was an innovative aspect. For example, we found a new way. Okay, maybe I don't want to be too technical, but for example, when you innovate your house for climate change, you'll put more insulation. Now, it can be that this thermal insulation will make the acoustics worse, actually. It sounds a bit strange because you add something extra, but the acoustics can get a bit worse. But you can mitigate that by doing some innovative solution. You can mitigate that. So there was, let's say, novelty and innovation in our project. I already mentioned that we checked for sustainability. And also, I think what is also important when you write a proposal, and also during the project, of course, is that you clearly show how the project is advancing personal careers. In our case, for example, some industrial people, they took the opportunity to improve themselves academically, and actually 2 of them even made steps towards their PhD, and actually now they have their PhD degree, so which of course is good for their career. Maybe some, here is like a list of particular hints maybe that you give. So it's definitely, I'm from KULeuven, and I have to say we had a huge support from KULeuven LRD in all respects, both in the application, during the project, and also from the national representatives. So they can really give you good tips and tricks to make your application successful, and also to, let's say, to fulfill the requirement during the project. LRD was also, okay, Monique was one of the question askers here. She really also helped us during for the consortium agreement, let's say, to financially to get along with all the partners and so on. So yeah. The partner status, we had some issues in the beginning that we had misunderstood the status of one of the partners. We thought that the partner could count as industrial, and it turned out in the end it was academic. And actually we had to change rather last minute the scheme, because the exchanges have to be intersectorial. You cannot, at that time you could not go from academic to academic. So it's important to know it from the very beginning, what is the status. For example, if you have a research institute, does it count as industrial or as academic? And okay, it's best to ask your national representative, or during the project also the project officer. You see here below, there's like a scheme which we made in advance with, let's say, as good as strong as possible commitments of who will go where, when, and for how long. In the end, when did not really fit the original schedule, but we did have it, let's say, something on paper that partners keep their commitments. I have to say that due to, and that's the last point here, you can make commitments, but a project takes several years, and it can very well be, and actually in our case it happened, that the personal career of people change. Sometimes people come in the company, sometimes people also go, sometimes people get children, and at that moment they cannot travel anymore. And actually one of our partners had, let's say, a rather big issue with that, several foreseen secondment months had to be cancelled because, okay, let's say the father had to stay in with his wife to take care of the baby. And if you have small companies, you cannot just like change this. So, but if it was motivated, so it was not a problem for the project in the end for the evaluation. It's also good, I think, to make a grant agreement. So that's like a kind of private agreement between the partners concerning the modalities. For example, does the coordinator get some extra means, so a contribution from the partners to do the coordination work, because it's quite some work in the end. And also, for example, if a person goes from, if a secondment happens, does the partner get some extra money, or does the sending institution get some extra money to, let's say, facilitate this secondment? One particular issue we had was that from one of the institutions that was in a late stage, one of the administrators left the company, and we had to get a new role for a new person in that role, and it was quite some, let's say, bureaucracy, maybe not, or let's say computer issues to get access to the websites and everything to log in, because that administrator person was gone, the password was gone, and it was a bit problem. But we got quite some help from the IT people from the project. Yeah, so that's a bit my experience with the project. I'd say all the partners are really happy. We made a lot of friendships. We had cultural exchange between actually in this case, southeast part of Europe and then the west part of Europe. So I can I can only thank the European Commission for the fact that this kind of projects exist. So thank you for your attention.